So in the last video, we looked at the first-person perspective module, which was a great, simple module to get us started and understand the structure of modules and how they work. Do you have something more advanced that we can kind of graduate to?
Yeah, let's take a look at this little UI piece here, which is the heart bar. And so basically this is the hearts or the hit points that the player in the game has. This is interesting because it has a little bit more going on inside the module from a kind of data standpoint, but it's still relatively simple to use, and you could use this across any game. So we can go back to our game Lua to see where we're requiring the heart bar, and we're calling it just hearts. And then in the scene, we're going here and creating it. Here's our heart module. And again, second two lines, just placing it on the screen and using screen origin and content height to make sure it's placed in the same position, no matter what device we're on. And when you look at the heart bar, it really just has two functions. The first function is damage, and the second function is heal. And all this is doing is decreasing the number of hearts that are visible here on the screen by the amount given in damage. So it sets this group count to something that's no less than 0. And it's looping through all the hearts that we created in kind of our initialization function here, and just setting the alpha to 0.2 on any ones that are less than the current count. So for an end user or for a game developer, we can pretty easily go and do a test. If heart count is less than 2, then we know that the player will have some sort of heavy breathing or something to let the user know that their impending doom is coming. If the heart count is less than 0, or really I guess in this case less than 1, then we're going to have to kill that end user. Because their heart count will be over. And this will be available in any scene that has the heart bar associated with it. So the scene that we created it in, or as we see up here, we make that heart a local variable to the entire game Lua, so you can basically access it from anywhere inside of this file. And so that's just another way of taking something, again, really simple, something that would be in a lot of different games, and making it something that becomes incredibly portable across different projects.
Now, let me ask you, what would be the difference between putting that logic that you just had there, that one line of code? Would you put that in the module itself, or would you want to keep it out into the game.lua file? How help somebody understand when they would integrate it into the module and when they would sort of keep it out as part of the game logic?
Yeah, so we can kind of look at that right now. When the game makes a match of the space monster tiles, which is basically our cue that we've hurt the end user. We simply just check, if the heart, we're going to damage the hearts or damage the player. Let's actually just do 1 heart of damage for the user. And if the new damage is equal to 0, then we're going to just go to the scene game over. So it becomes pretty simple. And if you look at the heart bar, when I call the heart bar and I call damage, it actually that function returns the current number of hearts that are available for that for the player. Right then and there in the function, so I can simply just call it and test it all at the same time. So let's see if we can.
So essentially, if it has something to do with the gameplay, then you would leave it out and you would put it into either a separate module in some way, or have it in game.lua. But if it relates directly to, in this case, how you keep track of the hearts and what the animation of the hearts are, or anything that's related to just the hearts module, it you wouldn't include it in the hearts module if it wasn't related to just that functionality.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the logic for adding and removing a heart is inside the heart module, but testing whether, the hearts module is not necessarily going to know what to do when all the hearts go to 0. It's not going to know your function for killing the player, restarting, or maybe the player gets an extra life or they have something else happen there. You just want it to return, hey, this is the current value of, the health of the player. And that's why it keeps track of it, but it doesn't necessarily do anything. And just a little demo of it. If I match these 3 things here, you notice that one heart went away, and we have a transparent heart. Let's match another one. Now we're down to 1 heart. And if I match one more round of alien heads, then boom, my game's over.
Okay.
And that happens all from that one piece.
Okay, I think that's a good, clear example, though. There is that point when especially when you're kind of learning something new, or things aren't exactly clear. You're kind of like, well, how do I, things get a little fuzzy, and you're like, well, should this go in this module, or is this something that should be standalone someplace else? And you really want to keep those things decoupled so that you can take it and move it from A to B. So I'm just trying to look for that. Those guidelines where somebody could say, "Oh yeah, I see what you're saying." Like you just said, you really want that heart module just to kind of keep track of the number of hearts that you have. It's not going to necessarily know any other thing about the game, and you want it that way. You don't want it to know anything else, because then it would be too tightly coupled, and you wouldn't be able to extract it out and move it to a different game altogether.
Yeah, and you can actually think of a lot of these modules as just being visual variables is, I think, a good way to think about it. So I might have I might have a game where I have just a global variable or a local variable of that scene of the number of hit points that the player has. But by using this heart module, I still have that variable, and it's called heart.count. Will tell me exactly how many hearts are left up here, but it will also let the user know how many hearts they have left, and by showing them how many hearts are there. Same thing for the score. Like I may have an internal variable that's score. But by having our score module, I can say score add 50, and it does all the heavy lifting of adding 50 to the score, incrementing the score, and my score count will tell me exactly what how many points the player has at any one particular time. So rather than having 6 copies of that variable floating all over the place, you basically import that module once. The other beauty of using modules like this is the ability to pass those between scenes, right? So if you have a score module like that and you include it in the top level of your Lua file, so I included it up here, then any other module, my in-game module, whatever, that has the same local requirement line, that scoring module will be local to that as well. And so it'll know what the score is across multiple scenes. And I think that's something that people, definitely have difficulty with. Like, oh, how many variables should I pass from one scene to another? And how do I pass, this from here to there? By having these kind of modules that live, in your requirements section, you can really have, a visual feedback that lets the player know how much score they have, and also lets all the different modules know how much score is available. And so that becomes important when you need to save those points to a disk or upload those points to a high scoreboard or anything along those